Company of Malaysia Berhad, or CCM, has grown significantly for over 50 years. The company has not only been listed on the main board of Bursa Malaysia, but its presence in the region is increasingly essential in order to fully provide the necessary support to customers. Starting with operations in Singapore in 1998, CCM presently has offices in Indonesia and the Philippines. Its business from regional markets has grown exponentially in the last 5 years and to date contributes more than 30% of the business. With decades of expertise and experience, CCM brings forth its commitment to provide sustainable solutions based on innovative sciences to healthcare, agricultural and manufacturing sectors. This week, we take a look at the company's success story and their vision to enhance the quality of life through science. Hello, I'm Rosmani Samdali and welcome to Tribute to GLCs, a show where we'll be showcasing government-linked companies and their contribution to Malaysians in general. Chemical Company of Malaysia Berhad, or CCM, Malaysia's largest generic pharmaceutical manufacturer, is listed on the main market of Bursa Malaysia. It is also a key player in the chemicals and pharmaceuticals industries. Now, CCM turned 50 in 2013, celebrating 5 decades of commitment to enhancing the quality of life for all Malaysians. As CCM forges ahead, the group will continue to strive for innovation and empower its employees in order to ensure product quality and customer satisfaction for years to come. Here's a short snippet of the company's achievements so far.
Chemical Company of Malaysia Berhad, CCM, is the largest generic pharmaceutical manufacturer in Malaysia. Over the last 5 decades, CCM has charted its growth, making a significant presence in the corporate world. A key player in the chemicals and pharmaceuticals industries, CCM is listed on the main market of Bursa Malaysia. CCM's decades of expertise and experience in its core business activities, which include chemical products and applications, technical advisory services, as well as pharmaceuticals and healthcare products and services, has bring into being its commitment to provide sustainable solutions based on innovative sciences. With a vision to further enhancing quality of life for all, CCM has managed every aspect of operations in its business across board by holding tight to its core values. Whilst ensuring business sustainability, CCM is committed, playing its key role as a corporate citizen, continues to conserving and protecting the environment and the wellness of the nation, which includes its long-running halal initiatives. As a pioneer with over 15 years of experience in the halal industry, CCM has always put halal as its top priority. Encapsulated in CCM's business conducts and principles as it marches towards aspirations to perform the Fard Kifayah or collective obligation, CCM strives making its halal products widely available. This vast knowledge and practices in halal industry has also enabled CCM to strengthen its position as a formidable company domestically as well as globally.
With us today, we have Leonard Arif Abdushatta, the Group Managing Director of Chemical Company of Malaysia Berhad, or CCM. Welcome to the show. It's a pleasure having you with us today.
Thank you, Nizam. Appreciate being on the show.
Now, the GLCs have just graduated from the transformation program from 2004 to 2014. Now, what were the key transformation initiatives taken by the company during this period?
On a macro basis, the transformation program was an excellent opportunity to basically adopt best practices that on its own, because of the scale of Malaysian companies, it was very difficult for each company to afford the consultants' costs, etc., to develop a more robust governance system. I think the transformation program, and I think most of the GLCs will agree, came up with multicolour books covering all things from CSR all the way to purchasing, etc. That, I think, was almost like a shot in the arm for a lot of the GLCs in Malaysia to pick up best practices, not only in Malaysia, but best practices as they are practiced globally as well.
Okay. Now, the general perception, that GLCs, it's easy for them to win mandates, is it true for CCM?
CCM CCM today came through a genesis as a private sector company. We were the old ICI. We've been around listed for the last 50 years or so, but we started off as a trading organization in Malaysia back in 1930 under ICI. So in a way, we are where we are today, operating primarily in the private sector generally. And even those sectors where we participate in the government sector tends to be on open tender basis. So if you're asking whether we get any favors by being a GLC, the answer is no.
No silver platter for you.
No silver platter. No silver platter.
Okay, so different countries, they practice different regulations. Now, can you share the company's aspirations, trying to comply with the different regulations in the different localities in the ASEAN region?
Right. This has become a very, very large issue and challenge for not only CCM, but I think any company seeking to traverse boundaries. Ultimately, at a population size of only about 30 million, we are relatively small within the ASEAN family. So the necessity to operate successfully outside of our boundaries is quite important. And I think the issue is really understanding the respective countries you want to operate in. Now, we have one end of the scale trading type activities, but on the other end of the scale, you've got pharmaceutical manufacturing, where the regulatory constraints are actually very, very high and not necessarily identical to Malaysia. No better, I wouldn't even say worse, it's just different. And I think some of the investments that we have to do in order to be successful overseas revolves around developing regulatory teams that actually understand the markets that we're operating in. And it is a big challenge.
Okay. And what are the challenges other than...
Well, as I said, there are differences. They're not better or any worse. We have certain requirements in Malaysia that we take for granted, but offshore or overseas, they don't implement anything similar. So we're prepared for that. But they may implement other requirements that we may not adopt in Malaysia. Examples in pharmaceuticals would be in Thailand. They require certain information at the back of blister packs of tablets, which is not required in Malaysia. So that's an example of a challenge. And of course, everything we export has to be exported on the platform of their regulations as opposed to just Malaysian regulations. There's a lot of work. The government's Ministry of Health especially has been very active in trying to develop an ecosystem whereby the requirements of the different countries are harmonized. And that's a work in progress at the moment.
Okay, so what were the measures you put in place to improve production efficiency in your plant?
Yeah. I think one of the challenges is because we're operating in a market that's only 29 to 30 million population, the scale of our operations tend to be smaller relative to if I were putting up a factory, say, in Indonesia or China, etc. So, but it gives us certain skills in doing what I call small batch manufacturing. And but then if we want to transverse our experience offshore, we must be able to actually make that leap.
Of course.
And that skill leap is not very easy. But having said that, I think one commonality in any business that you run is how efficient you can be. So about 4 or 5 years ago, we actually implemented Lean Six Sigma within CCM across all the divisions. We actually invested a huge amount in consultants, etc., to bring them in to train staff, etc. And that has been very, very successful in terms of managing costs. Those who have been following the CCM shares would notice that our operational expenditure levels have been kept very, very well under control over the course of the last 5 years. And that's primarily through operational efficiencies.
Okay, wonderful. We'll be taking a short break. When we return, we'll be talking about CCM's halal efforts and its growth strategies. Stay with us. Welcome back to Tribute to GLCs. Now, Chemical Company of Malaysia's Pharmaceuticals Division is the leading local pharmaceutical company in Malaysia, producing over 200 generic drugs. It is also currently growing its regional footprint in ASEAN. Let's take a quick look at what the company has done in order to maintain its excellence.
CCM has registered a 7.6% growth in profit before tax, PBT, to 13.7 million ringgit for the first 6 months ended June 30th, 2015, from 12.7 million ringgit in the corresponding period last year. The group has also recorded an encouraging PBT performance despite revenue easing 13.9% for the current period to 503.7 million ringgit from 584.9 million ringgit in the same period last year. Able to maintain its excellence, CCM is focused in every effort it takes. For the sole purpose of efficiency, CCM is divided into divisions but nonetheless united. Pharmaceuticals Division develops, manufactures and markets generic drugs and branded pharmaceutical products, while its Chemical Division has established a reputation as a chemical solutions provider related to the manufacturing, trading and development of a wide variety of chemical products. CCM's Pharmaceuticals Division serves as a benchmark in Malaysia's fast-expanding pharmaceutical segment. This division has gained a 20% share of Malaysia's generic pharmaceutical market and has established a strong presence regionally, namely Philippines, Indonesia and Vietnam.
If you just tuned in, you are watching Tribute to GLCs with Leonard Arif Abdul Shatta, the Group Managing Director of CCM Berhad. Now, Leonard, CCM began obtaining the halal certification for its products 11 years ago. Now, currently around 110 of CCM's 800 products are certified halal. Now, the company has also made Malaysia proud by winning the prestigious Islamic Economy Award in the Food and Health category at the Global Islamic Economy Summit held in Dubai recently. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, the award marks yet another meaningful milestone for CCM in its continued commitment to halal, which spans over 15 years. Yes. Now, can you elaborate a little bit on the growth of your halal business and its contribution to Malaysia?
All right. I think when we first started participating in, we were exploring. To be quite honest, the initial halal certification we got was actually under food sector, because that was the first sector that actually established halal certification. But we've been working very closely because there are clear differences between the manufacturing of food and the manufacturing of pharmaceuticals. So we've been working very closely with the various religious authorities and of course Ministry of Health in order to develop a standard for halal pharmaceuticals. And Malaysia was the first country in the world to actually establish its halal pharmaceutical standards, and we were the first company to get accredited against those standards. I think to understand the business, and one of the reasons why we participated into halal, there's a commercial element and of course there's the religious obligatory requirement. From a commercial angle, we saw ourselves operating in a market that as it progressed, the level of competition was getting a lot higher and you needed to establish an edge. You needed to be different in a sea of everything being similar. So we saw halal as being that edge, and it worked really well with the religious requirement of having products that are consumed to be certified halal. And we put a lot of investment into it. And I think as far as Malaysia is concerned, today I still believe that Malaysia is the hub for halal globally. And it's important that we leverage on this. I mean, obviously CCM will do our part. I'm hoping that the Malaysian government does it, because we're already far ahead in terms of Islamic banking, we're far ahead in terms of pharmaceuticals, we've got a very robust halal food sector, etc. And I think that's a great platform for Malaysia to set its own niche globally as well.
Okay, right. So yes, you did say that you were the first, to get certified, the MS 2424.
That's correct.
Yes. So your contribution or your, let's say, your support for this halal certification, how will it move Malaysia forward?
Well, I think it's always good to be first. Okay, and what we've done is when we came up with the halal certification or halal standards, it was important to get uniformity in thinking. Obviously, industry, profit-driven. You needed academics because it had to be intelligentsia-driven. Then you had to get the religious scholars to make sure everything was in line, etc. These are growing pains in when you want to develop any new industry, be it halal or otherwise. But I think the investment that was put in by the various stakeholders, I think, is is starting to pay dividends already. We're getting requests. I mean, this award that we won recently is a classic example of where Dubai is competing in a way with Malaysia to try to be the so-called halal hub. And I think we're ahead. We should never let our lead actually diminish.
Okay, so what are your growth strategies for the different departments under CCM?
Okay. As far as moving forward, the capital investment plan by CCM over the course of the next 5 years is actually going to be quite high. We recently did a corporate exercise in CCM where we housed all our pharmaceutical assets under another listed entity called CCM Duo Pharma Biotech Berhad. That has completed already, and we actually did a rights issue at the same time to construct new facilities. I think the platform for growth in the pharmaceuticals, at least, will be to look at niche production of products that are not already manufactured, whether in Malaysia or ASEAN, but also to look at new therapeutic areas and new types of pharmaceuticals coming through the pipeline. Things like biotherapies is one area that we're paying a lot of focus on, because we believe that the generic part, which is the small molecule part, competition is just going to get tougher and tougher. So we need to establish new revenue earners for us.
Okay, wonderful. We'll take another short break. When we return, we'll be discussing about CCM's contributions to Malaysians and what's next on its agenda. Stay with us. Welcome back to Tribute to GLCs with Leonard Arif Abdul Shatta, the Group Managing Director of CCM Berhad. Now, Leonard, CCM recently signed an MOU with SME Bank, for a 3-year collaboration on its Bumiputra Vendor Development Program, or BVDP. Now, can you elaborate more on this program and the success so far?
All right. I think one of the things that we've always been very sensitive is a concept of inclusiveness in terms of how we manage the businesses. And it's not just a ratio of male-female, but it's also trying to get a healthy ratio of the constituents of the Malaysian population, be Malay, Indian, Chinese, etc. But one of the issues we've seen is when we look at our vendor base, it's heavily non-Bumi skewed. And this is something that we're trying to address. And we've been doing programs in relation to the Bumiputra Vendor Development Scheme over the course, we started many years ago. Because I'll give you an example. A few years back in our transportation business, we had difficulty transporting goods during Deepavali and Chinese New Year because of the various racial backgrounds and cultural backgrounds of our drivers. So we actually had to intervene to make sure that we could continuously deliver throughout every festive season. And it's on that note that we've actually been driving the inclusiveness of having Bumiputra vendors that can compete in the market, but having said that may require a little bit of help. And that's where the company plays a role, and where SME Bank also plays a role in terms of training, be it entrepreneurial, be it operational efficiency, and it could be some really basic things like cash flow management, etc. And it's these little things that we believe will add to the vibrancy of the Bumiputra business community as well. And it's a small part that CCM as a GLC can actually contribute back to society.
So how has the program succeeded so far?
It's worked well, because if you look at, as I said, we started this a fair few years back. It's a more organized program now. When it comes in the transport sector, I use the example of us actively looking out for Bumiputra Transporter to balance out our delivery loads. Fast forward 15 to 20 years, he's now the biggest transporter we have. So we can point to various successes we've had, but very many of these Bumiputra entrepreneurs who join us, they do need help, a little bit of hand-holding, which we're more than happy to do. But I think the program has got past what I consider its infancy, and we're now moving to slightly higher added, because it would be nice to get more Bumiputra companies also actively involved in the pharmaceutical sector, as opposed to just the services sector.
Wonderful. How about, there's currently a talent shortage in the country. So what were the measures taken by the company to retain and attract talent?
Right. I may not be following the party line as a talent shortage. I think the talents are there. They are there. Okay. When you talk about youth unemployment, etc., and I've taken part in quite a number of interviews, etc. There are very good talent available. But like the Bumi Vendor scheme, in some cases, some of this talent grew up lacking certain skills, soft skills, be it communication skills or self-confidence as well.
I think that's the biggest problem.
It is. But having said that, I've seen, I don't actually have a preference when we employ, whether it's a local graduate or an overseas graduate. We usually employ in terms of inherent capabilities that we see in the individual, because the rest we can teach, the rest we can train, but they need to have that infrastructure to allow them to grow. So we've seen local graduates come into CCM because of the heavy emphasis on export, etc. Almost the lingua franca within CCM tends to be English because we deal with so many overseas companies. But I've seen local graduates after a year of graduating and coming into the company, within 1 year they are communicating in English as well as an overseas graduate.
Wonderful.
So I think it's the ecosystem that you put in place. And as I said, there are specific skills that are maybe lacking, but that's mainly because of courses not offered by local universities. But for those courses offered by local universities like accounting, and it's really great to see we've got medical students now joining us in roles outside of what they were trained for. You know, we've got a new medical graduate who's now in marketing. We've got another medical graduate who's decided to be a sales rep, a sales detailer. And this is really good to see, because I think this is the way to go. And it helps professionalize the industry in totality as well.
Wonderful. Yes, it is true. It doesn't mean that, you know, if you do study in one course, you know, you might be doing something else later. You know,
Exactly.
You might realize one day, wake up one day, nope, this is what I want to do.
Exactly. Look at me. I graduated with law, and look where I am now.
Well, thank you so much, Leonard, for being with us on the show.
pleasure.
It's been such an eye-opening session. Well, we hope to see CCM grow further in the future, providing Malaysians with affordable drugs and enhancing the quality of life through science. Well, that wraps up this edition of Tribute to GLCs. For more information on the show, you can log on to astroawani.com. We'll be back same time, same place next week. Till then, I'm Rosmari Zamdali. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.